go. Cool. Hi. I love to see a lot of scholars get to join us today, and I also see some different names, ones I haven't seen before, so I'm super excited. If you've been to any webinar I've hosted before, you guys already know I love to ask you guys how your day is going. In 3 emojis or less, share in the chat how your day is going. Mm. Ooh, cryptic. I like trying to figure out what they mean. I think that's my favorite part. There's mine. Oh, a little celebratory. Cool. Looks like most people are doing pretty well. We'll give people another minute to join before we get started. So, cool. Well, it looks like most people here. I know other people join us. Their class continues to end. So without further ado, we will get started. And just as scholars and students know that this is being recorded, but it's to share with students that weren't able to attend right away. But I'm super excited to have today Claire from Scholarships America and Tara from ECMC, and they have a lot of information to share with you guys. And so without further ado, I'll let you guys take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, I was just going to do a quick introduction and then pass it back to you, Tara, but I'm happy to be here. I'm Claire Berge-Schmidt. I'm with Scholarship America. And if you're not familiar with our organization, we are a nonprofit actually headquartered in Minnesota. I'm in Minneapolis right now. We work directly with students, parents, colleges, businesses, and communities to help students fulfill their college dreams through scholarship. My role in marketing, I really focus on digital marketing, so social media, search engine optimization, all of that stuff. So that's kind of the lens I'm coming with today. But I'm from Minnesota. I went to McAllister in St. Paul. So I'm just love Page Foundation. So just really happy to be here. Go ahead, Tara.
Awesome. Thanks, Claire. Hi, everyone. My name is Tara Pribno. I am from ECMC. Some of you may be familiar, Educational Credit Management Corporation. My role there is the College Place Director. And in this role, I serve students of all ages throughout the state of Minnesota, specifically with things like financial aid, preparing for college. We are also a nonprofit organization headquartered in downtown Minneapolis. And for some reason, my camera's not working. I'm so sorry, but hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. All right, we can go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to talk about scholarships. So anyone that's with us today, do you want to do an emoji, like a thumbs up or thumbs down? Has everyone heard of what a scholarship is? Do you know what a scholarship is? And it's okay if you don't. I see some thumbs up. Awesome. Great. Okay, that's a great answer. And you can use the chat also. Awesome. Okay, so second question, has anyone ever applied for a scholarship before? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay, good. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up again. That's awesome. Great. So it's really kind of nice to check in with everyone to see where we're at. As I present to, students in all sorts of situations, right? Whether they're just getting started to prepare for college, if they're already enrolled. And so one of the things that Claire and I are going to talk to you about is what scholarships are and really tell you all the ins and outs from two different perspectives, really. Someone who helps students from my seat, and then Claire, who's got expertise on the actual scholarship platform side. So we'll go ahead and get started. Simply, we're just going to define what a scholarship is to remind everybody that scholarships are free money. So this is money that is awarded to a school, an organization, etc. I'm sorry, by a school, in order to help a student pay for their education. So this is a part of financial aid, right? So financial aid is in three parts. We've got our free money, which is scholarships and grants, and then we've got the earned and borrowed money. And today we're talking about the free money. So secondly, just remember scholarship money, it doesn't have to be repaid. This is money that is given to you without any sort of repayment. Do note that scholarships are a major part of college financial aid in the United States. Many students find scholarships, apply for scholarships, and some of them win the scholarships and use that to pay for their college education, regardless of what college you're attending. There.
Great. So here are just going to be a lot of statistics and numbers. And I think really what the takeaway here is that you should apply for scholarships. If you remember nothing else from today is that you should apply because there are over 1.7 million scholarships awarded annually. And that $7.4 billion is awarded each year in private funding. Scholarship America alone manages 1,400 scholarships and distributed, I think it was $286 million in scholarships just last year. And that's just from Scholarship America. But what's most shocking is that over $100 million in scholarships go unclaimed every year. So what what I want you to take away from this conversation today is that you should not be the reason that you don't get a scholarship by not applying, because there's dollars left on the table. And from a funder perspective, we don't want dollars left on the table. We want you to apply. We want these dollars to get into students' hands. Is this me, Tara? Sorry.
No, sorry, this
Okay.
is me. I was having trouble unmuting. My apologies. All right, thanks, Claire. So there are some things that we hear, Claire and I, and maybe even some of you have heard some of these myths before. And what we kind of want to do is just let you know that these are actually myths. So let's start with the first one I hear so often, which is scholarships are too competitive and only for top scholars and athletes. You're going to see today that is absolutely not true. Now, while there are scholarships for athletes and top scholars, there are also scholarships that are outside of that scope. Okay. The other one is small scholarships aren't worth applying to. So we see some of those scholarships in the amount of maybe $250 or $500. And some folks feel that is a small amount compared to maybe a $5,000 scholarship award that they saw. Really what it comes down to is what time you want to put into applying for scholarships, because a $250 scholarship might be worth your time and effort and energy to apply for it. So just remember the small ones can add up over time. We also hear this one, only low-income students can get scholarships. Again, that is not true. There are definitely some scholarships out there that are focused towards serving low-income students. But again, you do not have to have a financial challenge or anything in order to be eligible for a scholarship, generally speaking. Oops. And then lastly, only high school seniors can apply for scholarships. Has anyone ever heard that before? Thumbs up. Only high school seniors. That one I hear a lot. That's my favorite one to bust because scholarships you can start applying for, honestly, depending on the scholarship. I've seen some that go down to kindergarten. So not that there are many of those, but there are a ton of scholarships out there that have different criteria, and it is not just for high school seniors. There.
Great. Yeah, so there are several key categories of scholarship. So when you're thinking about what you may be eligible for, this is just a helpful framework to have in the back of your head as you search for scholarships. And students, you can be eligible for many different scholarships and different scholarships in each category. So don't opt out of any specific category. You could be eligible for many. And we just thought it would be helpful to kind of review the definitions of each. So merit-based, probably the most recognized type of scholarship is merit-based. And that could be academic, that could be artistic or athletic or any other activity or interest that you have, extracurricular activity or volunteer based as well. So that's merit based. Need based, again, is based on your as a student or your family's financial record, and often requires the completion of the FAFSA as a part of the application. Student specific or identity specific. These are scholarships where students qualify based on sex or race or religion, even your medical history or your family's medical history. I know that there's a scholarship that Scholarship America manages for siblings of students with cancer. So that's an option out there as well. There's career specific scholarships for students who plan to pursue a specific field of study. Now, again, speaking for Scholarship America, I know a number of our scholarships are STEM specific. So we'll go to a student that's planning to study coding or hardware engineering or some sort of STEM field of study. We also have a number of healthcare specific scholarships as well. So students interested in studying nursing, et cetera. And then there's college specific, which Tara will discuss more later. But these are scholarships offered by individual colleges and universities to qualified students based on the college.
Thanks, Claire. So to dive a little bit into the college scholarships, so these are going to be offered by the college or institution themselves. So one thing that you can do as a prospective student when you are researching colleges, when you're applying for colleges, is to take a look at the college scholarship website page. Almost every single college has one, and there is where you can really see what the college could offer you as a student. So Claire just talked about, the difference between the need-based and merit-based. Those are two really common scholarships, where the requirements are around that are offered by a college. Also the grade level, some of you may have heard of like an incoming freshman scholarship, when you're brand new to a college, or if you're studying a specific major or there's a department scholarship. Oftentimes those are later, like when you're a junior or a senior rather in your program, because you've already committed to that program. And now the college is going to say, hey, there's an opportunity for you as a student studying, let's say STEM. There's a scholarship you could be eligible for. So the money where this comes from, really the college, it does definitely come from the college, but oftentimes when we look at private schools, a lot of private schools have donors that create these scholarships, and they're actually alumni. So people who have graduated from that college or institution that have money that want to give back to students. So know that usually a college scholarship or an institutional scholarship is only going to be awardable to a student that's either coming in as a student or is a current student, meaning they're just specific to that college or institution that you are going to study at. So we have a lot of different places that scholarships come from. We just talked about college specific ones. Really, Claire and I are going to talk about that everyone should be applying for scholarships, and you're like, well, where do they come from? And there's not one simple answer. So what we want to tell you is that there are a bunch of different places, organizations, different online platforms that have scholarships. So again, the scholarship is free money, and the scholarship opportunity is created by someone who has that free money, or also known as a donor. So we think about private companies, nonprofit organizations that offer scholarships. Sometimes I hear a lot of law offices that offer scholarships all over the United States, and not just specifically for students who are studying law, but for students in general, anyone that's going to college. They can really come from all sorts of places. Social organizations, community organizations, a lot of individual, like a store or a locally owned business, sometimes they will have a scholarship. It may be that you have to live in a certain community or a certain county, even a certain city, or attend a certain high school to be specific, or to be selected or eligible for a scholarship. So I know this is a lot of information, but just know that scholarships come in all shapes and sizes and forms, and they come from all different sorts of organizations and people throughout the US.
Great. So one area of, or one resource for scholarships that we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into is obviously online, scholarship search sites and different listings of scholarships. And there's a ton out there. And I know I don't need to tell you guys this, but Google is your friend when looking for scholarships. But because there are just so many options out there, we wanted to highlight a few trusted, legit resources for you. Because I know it's super easy to get overwhelmed. And I highly recommend you check out Scholarship America. We have a browse scholarship page on our website. It's super easy to navigate to if you go to scholarshipamerica.org. And there's a lot of different ways to sort the scholarships, what's open now or what's opening soon, or just alphabetically. So suggest you check us out there. College Board's Big Future is another super great resource. FastWeb, another one, CapEx. And there are also some great state and federal resources through the Minnesota Office of Higher Education, and then the U.S. Department of Labor, another great way to find scholarships. And I mentioned it's super easy to get overwhelmed. So if you are going the search site route, I would really just recommend picking out like one or two to start with. They'll likely require you to create a profile. And so just start like with one or two, see what's out there, see what kind of the profile experience is like. And then just two things I wanted to call out, that if they ask you to pay, I would not go with that site. There's definitely free resources out there. Scholarship America being one of them, that it doesn't require you to create a profile just to see what scholarships are out there. And then just keep an eye out for scams. Unfortunately, that's the reality of, the internet. And we'll get into this later. But just keep that lens on. Like, is this a legit resource? Is it mission based? Is it a nonprofit? Like, those are some questions to ask. And again, we'll kind of dive into that, like how to tell what's legit or not later. But Google is a great resource, and these are ones that we would recommend to start.
Thanks, Claire. And if I can just add something quickly. So to Claire's point, with Scholarship America, where she is representing, you don't have to make a profile to kind of get matched with scholarships. Some of these other ones, I just want to point out a difference. Not that it's good or bad, but for example, I signed up for Unigo at one point, and as a student, just to kind of help my students, right? What do I see through the perspective of a student? And you answer, if you want to create a profile and be able to search through all the scholarships that this platform has, you have to make a profile, right? And sometimes that can be a really daunting experience. But what I encourage is that if students want to do this, sometimes the platform itself will match you with scholarships. So if you say, this is my GPA, or this is what I like to do, or this is what I want to study, sometimes what these companies or the scholarship platforms will do is they'll match scholarships to you based on the questions you answered about yourself. There's no wrong way of doing it, but to Claire's point, there's a couple different ways to do it. And I also recommend, picking one or two of these platforms to search, because a lot of times these organizations have some of the same scholarship opportunities. And so you might, if you're like signing up for 6 of these, and there's more than this, you're going to oftentimes see a lot of the same opportunities. And really what you want to do is is focus on the ones that apply to you instead of getting a lot of them thrown at you through all sorts of different organizations. Sorry, I just wanted to make that clear that, sometimes you have to put a little bit more effort into creating that profile, but sometimes it pans out when the scholarship platform will actually say, hey, it looks like you're a student that's eligible for XYZ.
Thanks, Tara.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. All right, so we talked a little bit about where scholarships come from, right? And some of the things that make up a scholarship. So everything we're kind of showing you, just know that this isn't the full list. Because when a person has money and they want to donate money in the form of a scholarship, they are able to make up the requirements, right? They are able to create the eligibility components because they're the ones that are giving the free money away. So here is a list of things that you might see that would make you either qualified or eligible for a scholarship or maybe not. Again, not all scholarships are going to have all these components, but these are some things that they might choose to have as an eligibility component. One of my favorites that students kind of usually laugh at me for, but I talk about there's a redhead scholarship. So if you are a student who was born with red hair, and still has red hair, there is a scholarship that you might be eligible for. And as we know, like, I'm not sure the percentage, but redheads in general, there aren't as many, right, in America, meaning there are less students with that all around that are going to be eligible for that scholarship because there are less students with red hair statistically. But just don't ask me the percent, but I know that for a fact. Another one I like to talk about is that there is a scholarship for tall people. It's called Tall Clubs International. And so again, these are two things that are identity based, right? Maybe how you were born, but that there's a scholarship that could be for you. Also in the workplace, students, if you have a job, is there a scholarship opportunity for you because you work at that place? So take a look at this list and just familiarize yourself with it. These are commonly going to be things that might make you eligible or not eligible for a scholarship. And what I think is really important to point out is that not every scholarship is supposed to be available to every student. These folks make up these scholarships for whatever reason. A lot of scholarships we see are those of, for a passing of someone, and it is for like in memory of them, and they create a scholarship. And that person may have experienced some sort of mental health issue, or sometimes we'll hear, someone with diabetes and things like that. So they want to create a scholarship in their honor for a student that has diabetes. That's just an example. So when you're looking at this list, just know you're not going to be eligible and qualified for every single one. And that is supposed to be the way it is. So don't get frustrated. I promise you there is a scholarship out there, whether we share it with you today or you find it on yourself or on your own, that is for you.
Great. So here is where we wanted to just review kind of what to expect when you get to when you find a scholarship that you may want to apply to. What does the application process kind of look like? And again, I'm speaking from Scholarship America's perspective and process. And can say that the items listed on the screen are fairly standard across all scholarships, across the industry. And it will, again, depend on the specific scholarship, to Tara's point, and the specific donors' priorities and how they wanted to design the scholarship. But it's pretty safe to say the application will have at least a form with, kind of a demographic section, which I'll touch on in the next slide. And then a section that is essentially your resume, jobs you've had, volunteering experiences you've had, activities you do, fairly straightforward things like that. And then for need-based programs, they will ask for your EFC, your estimated family contribution, or at Scholarship America, we ask you to upload just a copy of a tax form called the 1040. And again, if you don't have access to that form, there's different ways that we work with students to talk about need-based programs. And then other required uploads may be a transcript from your school. Some programs may also require a letter of recommendation that is submitted. And at Scholarship America, we actually do that electronically. So whomever you ask to provide that letter kind of creates a profile on our system and then submits the letter that way. And then finally, there's essays, and actually at Scholarship America, we don't do essays, we do short answer responses. And I can say that's a trend that I'm seeing across different scholarship providers, is not doing these really long form essays, but more short answer responses. And when I say short, it is really short, like 250 words, I think, is what we ask for in most of our questions. So we've actually heard from students like, there's not enough space here. I need more space to answer the question. So and that's Scholarship America's process. And to the next slide. So every application is different. I think Tara and I mentioned that, but there are some key details that remain fairly consistent across programs. So if you're kind of getting all your materials together to apply to a lot of different scholarships, this is information that you'll likely need for whatever scholarship you're applying to. And that's your name, your date of birth, just pretty straightforward contact information. Email is especially important. Because at Scholarship America, that's what we use to notify about decisions on whether or not the student received the scholarship. So be sure to use an email that you have regular access to. And then Scholarship America also asks some other questions, like if you're a first generation student, what your GPA is, things like that. So that's information to have access to. I do want to call out, there's a social security number on this slide. I would say if a platform or something is asking for your social security number, or like super personal information like that, think twice before submitting it. We at Scholarship America do not ask for your social security number, I think, until the award decision. So until we say, hey, we want to give you money and need this information, I would not provide personal information like that, just to ensure your safety and security online. Anything to add, Tara, on that?
Nope, I completely agree. I also advise students the same if you're asked for your social security number. And to Claire's point, it might be asked, and that might be part of the process, but that you wait to hand that information over until you are awarded. Knowing that it is going into the safe place, into safe hands, or it won't be shared. Great, thanks. So how many of you, raise of hands, how many of you have ever written a scholarship resume before? Or even a job resume, a resume of any kind? All right, I see some raised hands here. Okay, so a scholarship resume, kind of similar to a job resume, but what's really important to remember on this slide is that your scholarship resume is going to stick with your high school experiences and not anything that you did before. So if you played a sport in middle school, or if you were in Scouts in middle school, you do not add that to the scholarship resume. They're only interested in the things that you've done in high school. Again, this is a component that doesn't necessarily mean that every single scholarship is going to ask you for a resume. This is just one of the things that you could be asked for. And if you have one already, you can use it for multiple scholarships if they are asking for it. Another thing, Claire mentioned, they might want your transcript. So we're just going to point out quickly here, if they want your transcript, they're usually going to look at your GPA, or they're going to say, oh, okay, we're verifying the GPA information that you entered. Sometimes they'll want to look at the coursework, which is why they request it. And just know the most important thing on this slide is the official versus unofficial copy of your transcript. So remember, the official one is sealed, and this would come from your actual high school. The unofficial means you can do a PDF. That's really important because some scholarship providers will not accept the unofficial if they've asked for the official. In addition, Claire mentioned the financial information. Sometimes, but not always, a scholarship is based on, it's that need-based, or that financial need. And so a scholarship might ask you for your expected family contribution, which would come from the FAFSA or the Minnesota Dream Act. And that's located on your SAR, your student aid report. And just remember, when we're talking about our social security numbers, if a scholarship provider wants a copy of your student aid report, remember to take something like, I don't know how people do this now. Like, I guess there's all sorts of things with PDFs that you can edit, but make sure that your social security number, those last 4 digits that's on there, is not showing, because you do not need to share that information when you're asked for financial information. They're simply just wanting that copy of your student aid report. All right, so as Claire mentioned, some scholarships require an essay, or now we're hearing the term the short answer responses, which was a new term to me. Claire taught me, and I really like that one, because when I think of an essay, I'm thinking of like a paper, right? Like something I have to spend a long time writing about. And really some of the essays or the things that they're asking you to write about are less than 200, 300 words. So short answer response, I like that one. Know that you want to answer the essay question. These are just some tips. I know that sounds really, really easy, but it's really easy, I know myself, to go off on a tangent and start writing about something completely different, not even relevant to what I was asked. So try to stay on track. And be mindful of the essay requirements, or the short answer response requirements. If there is a maximum of 300 words, you don't want to exceed the 300 words, because there are actual people that are reading your responses. And it takes time to read all those responses. So sometimes they don't have time to read something that's 700 words from everybody, which is why they put a cap of 300 words, for example. You're the one that's writing this, right? So you get to choose what you share. And so be creative. Be creative with your response. How are you going to stand out versus the other student that's submitting their response, right? And then, you can reuse any of your responses, especially if you have a more general question that is asked of you. We'll do an example next. You can absolutely reuse essays or short answer responses. Just be really, really careful that you're still answering the question that was asked on the scholarship. It might be different from another one. So you could definitely reuse it. Just be careful. And it never hurts to have someone take a look. Whether that's a teacher, an instructor at school, myself, I'm happy to look at them. If I have a student that says, hey, will you write my essay for me? I will say absolutely not. But if you write your essay and bring it to me, I would be really excited to read it and provide feedback. So just know there are people out there that will read this for you if you want an extra pair of eyes to take a look, maybe catch something you didn't, and make sure that you're turning in a really, really good response.
Here, there was a quick question. I don't know if you said, do you have any good examples of scholarship application short answers that stand out?
Ooh, go ahead, Claire.
I'm happy to answer that. I don't actually get to read the applications, but I have heard from my colleagues that I think students probably have higher expectations for themselves than scholarship providers do. So we love to hear what may be mundane information in your life. We want to hear that. Mundane meaning like you have to provide care for your little sister, or you have to, fill in for someone at work, so to support, to help support them. And I'm not coming up with good examples here, but what I mean to say is unusual circumstances is kind of what we want to hear about. What may be normal everyday responsibilities to you would make you stand out to a scholarship provider, because you're helping your family or you're helping your community in some way that is not maybe specifically volunteer hours, but is important to the community. So that's what I think is important to communicate, that you don't have to have like a massive star story in your essays.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't even necessarily have to be a strong writer. I mean, some of these essays, or what you're being asked, it's kind of fun to respond, honestly. Depending on the question, right? And we'll do a couple of examples, but I think too, when you think of like when you're reading something, as a student, what makes that, that article, or what makes that video stand out to you? What is attractive to you about what you're seeing and what you're watching? And then know that, that might be what someone else is interested in too, right? What gets you excited about that? And how can you write about that? How can you put that on paper, or type that out? Yes, Sandy, would you like to speak up about your experience? I would love that.
Are we able to?
Sandy, would you want to just speak out loud? I can allow you to talk, so you don't have to type it all out.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And yes, I can definitely speak on the experience I have with Scholarship America. It's honestly such a easy program to submit your application, and it's super friendly for a user to use as well. I've actually applied to two scholarships using Scholarship America, and I've got two of the scholarships. So really good. If you guys would like, I can also share in the chat a story that I wrote as well for the short essay, which is really easy and convenient for a lot of us.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I see we have a raised hand from Angie. You also have permission to use your mic.
I wanted to talk about how for my college essay, which was very similar, I just talked about how my room looked like throughout the course of my high school experience, and I got into most of the colleges that I applied to. So I would talk about how it would be messier when I had more things going on in my life, and how it got to see what I was emotionally going through. So I really personified my room, and I had my English teacher look over it, and she really liked it. So it just reminded me of how you were talking about the simpler details and like the more mundane details in your life really make a big difference.
I love that. Thank you, Angie.
Yeah, thank you
that's
so
really
much for
awesome.
sharing. This is great. Yeah. Anyone
then
else have anything they want to share?
There is another question in the Q&A. Would you say authenticity is more important than originality?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was trying to get at is we want to know your real life experience, and we want to know that the scholarship is going to provide an impact on your life. So sharing really authentic details about what may not be a big deal to you could be, a big deal to the scholarship provider trying to determine who to give the scholarship to. So exactly.
Great questions, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for sharing too. We do have just a quick example of what a short answer response could look like. And meaning not the response, but the question. So this is really simple. So what are your future goals, and how will going to college help you achieve them? So if you're sitting there like, I don't know. So remember some of those little things, right? What is going to make your story or your response different than everyone else's? Paying attention to those little details, or maybe some of the things that you might not think are important. Another one is discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth, and a new understanding of yourself or others. I think a lot of people, if you're like, well, I don't think that's happened to me. I think of something immediately when I see this, and I think of the year 2020, in every single aspect that all of us were affected the same and differently. Definitely not an accomplishment in my life, but an event, a realization, things that happened that were really important to me. So think about how 2020 maybe affected your life, whether it was negative or positive or neither. That's something you can talk about, as a lot of folks went through a lot during that time. I have another, just an example, and this one to me is fun. This one's not at Scholarship America. This one is actually at Unigo. But this one, so imagine that your high school or college has been overrun with zombies. Your math professor, the cafeteria employees, even your best friend have all joined the Walking Dead. Flesh out a plan to avoid the zombies, including where you'd hide at the top 5 things you'd bring to stay alive. So this is a real scholarship example. This is a real question that is asked. This scholarship is offered every single year. The deadline is October. And so this would be an example of where you might be able to be more creative, right? In a non-real life situation, but what would you do? And so an example of bringing maybe that originality still to your story or to your response. So again, all of the questions you're going to be asked are going to be completely different. But again, if they are similar, you can reuse them, especially if we're talking about maybe one of these, right? If you write an amazing short answer or essay for these, definitely use one of those again. All right, I think this is still me. Okay, so folks, you might be asked for a letter of recommendation. Does everyone know what a letter of recommendation is? If not, just it's something that's going to come from a person who knows you really well and can kind of refer you, right? Or can say, hey, this student is a really great student because of XYZ. You don't want to ask someone that you don't really know to write a letter of recommendation for you, because they're not going to know what to write about. So again, not something that you will always need for a scholarship, but you might be asked for it. So you might want to have one or two handy, depending on how many they ask for. I think the most I've seen is 3, but not always common, but this can be something that comes up. And then also, just be mindful in saying thank you. So if you get a scholarship, say thank you to that scholarship donor for that opportunity, whether it's Scholarship America or whether it's from a private university or public college. And if your scholarship you get, twice a year or once a year or something like that, make sure that you update those folks on how you're doing, because they want to hear how your experience is and how that money is helping you.
And I will add, from the perspective of a scholarship provider, we know you're super busy, but we do love to hear about how that scholarship affected your life, if you were able to take on fewer hours at work, or if that opened up study abroad opportunities. That's information that we love to hear, to know that the scholarship was super impactful. And we're not expecting like handwritten notes. I mean, that's always nice, but just emailed updates are super powerful to us, and we're able to share that with some of the donors too, to say, hey, this is like, your dollars are actually making a difference, and this is what this student is doing with their scholarship, or what they're able to do now because they received the scholarship.
That's an awesome point. Thank you, Claire. All right. Claire, take it away with some scams.
Yeah, so unfortunately, there is some, because the internet, scams are scholarship scams are out there. So we wanted to kind of share some of these red flags for what to watch out for as you look for scholarships, and some of these phrases, to know that, hey, this is not a legit scholarship. I'm not going to spend time applying to it or provide any sort of information. And the first is, the scholarship is guaranteed or your money back. There's literally no way to guarantee that you'll get a scholarship. And so if you see that phrase or that wording, don't apply. Another one is, if a scholarship or someone representing a scholarship asks for your personal information, especially a credit card, that's a red flag right there. I cannot think of an example of any scholarship that Scholarship America manages where we would need your credit card or your bank account information. Like, that's not going to happen. You can't get this information anywhere else. It's just like a sales tactic that I don't think legit scholarships would use or employ, because we know that there's tons of scholarships out there. So we wouldn't say that. And then the promise of, we'll do all the work for you, just give us your information, we'll apply on your behalf. That also is like not going to happen either. I think that's the point of scholarships, is for the student to take the initiative and look for them and apply for them for themselves. If a parent is helping you, that's another story, but there are no legit platforms or scholarships out there that I can think of that would apply on your behalf. So
yeah, and Claire, if I can just jump in, I
Yeah.
had a student recently ask, I had someone that said, they'll find scholarships for me for $100 an hour. And I was like, okay. I'm like, that's a great offer. He said, but where are they finding the scholarships that you can't? And so we're sharing some resources with you today, because we want you to be able to have the knowledge, to not have someone else do it for you, when you can do it yourself, as well as just being mindful of the scammers that are out there. So thanks, Claire.
Yeah, so I know that this is a question that students have to ask themselves, and is this scholarship legit or not? And so just quickly wanted to provide some key ways for students to be able to tell whether or not a scholarship is a true scholarship. And one really important way is if the scholarship either shares testimonials from previous winners or profiles of previous winners, so that you know that there's real students out there who have received this scholarship before. Another thing I like to recommend is just doing some research other than the website of the scholarship. Check that they have like a social media presence, that there's actual followers, that there's not like millions of followers that they've just purchased, that there's some comments going back and forth. That's another good way to check out if a scholarship is legit. And then if a scholarship is real, they will have very clear eligibility requirements, because they're not just trying to get everyone to apply just to collect data and then sell data. They'll have very clear eligibility requirements of who that scholarship is for, if it's geographic specific or field of study specific, like that will be very clear on the scholarship page. So just some key ways to look out.
Awesome. Thank you. So everyone, when you are applying for all of these scholarships, if you haven't started already, which I know a bunch of you have, there's a way to stay organized. ECMC's got a scholarship application tracker, which kind of helps, keep track of all the ones you're applying for with the name, the URL, when the deadline is. That is really, really important. A lot of scholarships will not accept a late information, right? Or the information that they need. It also lets you keep track of, do I need a transcript, a resume? What is needed here? And so, if you're a pen and paper person, you can print this out. This is also editable as a PDF. Sometimes I like to throw this information into an Excel sheet when I'm helping students. I'm more of an Excel person. But I'll make sure to get this link to everyone. This is a free resource if you find it helpful to keep yourself organized. And some additional tips for you, apply to the unusual scholarship. So if you are a student that has red hair and was born with red hair, you know that there aren't as many folks who are going to be applying for it, right? And so if you take advantage of some of, we'll call them unusual, or ones you maybe have never heard of before, chances are someone else hasn't heard of it either, right? Proofread all of your information, whether it's a short response, whether it's an essay that's a little bit longer, all the information, your name, your email address, everything. Make sure that it is correct when you're submitting your information. Again, be mindful of deadlines. You're not going to get a scholarship if you can't get in it on time, right? Because there are other folks that are also putting their time and effort into this as well. And then a really good tip is to start searching locally. So Claire and I've told you some places right online. We've got Scholarship America. I say one of the best places if you're gonna do some looking that's not online is to talk to your high school counselor. Your high school counselor is going to have a list of scholarships that I probably don't have, that Claire's probably not aware of, because they're really specific to your high school, right? Or the area in which you grew up in. And so that's a great place to look. As well as in your own backyard, or meaning your community, those smaller organizations, maybe where you work, or a parent that works somewhere. Just know scholarships are competitive, right? So not everybody gets to win, unfortunately. So again, with those tips, start locally, right? Start with the smaller pools of applicants, right? Anyone that's from Minnesota, that's a Minnesota scholarship specific, we're not going to have students from the rest of the United States applying for those, right? It's just going to be specific to Minnesota students. So sometimes those nationwide ones are easy to find, but because they're easy to find, a lot of other people are finding them and also applying for them. And again, just don't be discouraged if you don't win. Don't let that stop you from applying, because the bottom line is if you don't apply and you don't try, you have zero chances of getting the free money. So it is going to take a little bit of effort on your part.
Yeah, so quickly, I know we're running up on time, but most scholarships will be very transparent in communicating the number of awards that are available, because we do know that that factors into your decision, exactly to Tara's point, about whether or not to apply. So some scholarships, just keep in mind, are awarded to one individual, have one award, and some have multiple winners. There's a couple programs we manage that have more than 300 awards each year. So just keep a lookout for that when determining whether or not you're going to apply to that specific scholarship. And then some programs are renewable versus one time. So renewable, and they'll stay with you through graduation or up to a certain amount of years. So just keep an eye on that. And then just if you don't receive a scholarship at the first try, there's often no requirements that you can apply again, as long as you're still within those eligibility requirements. So keep your spreadsheets. They may be relevant into the future if you don't receive the scholarship the first time.
All right.
And then most scholarships at Scholarship America, we notify students on whether or not they have received the scholarship via email. So having access to whatever email you used to apply is super important. And I would strongly advise against using your high school email, or any email that you may lose access to in the future. A lot of students I know create a scholarship specific email, or just use their Gmail or whatever that they have access to, that they know that they'll have access to in the future. Especially if the program is renewable, communication will be sent to the email that we have on file. So just keep that in mind.
Awesome. And I'm just going to quickly, again, for the sake of time, how are the scholarships dispersed? So if you are a winner, you're going to work directly with that donor, that organization, right? If you win a scholarship from Scholarship America, you're going to be working with someone from that organization in order to get those funds or that free money dispersed or entered into your school. You do want to notify your financial aid office immediately if you are a winner. And the reason why is because sometimes scholarships can be what's called, you end up in an over award process. So you receive too much financial aid. And we don't want that to happen. You're going to work directly with your financial aid office when you get a scholarship. And that's all going to be happening kind of behind the scenes, but just notify them when they get it. And I want to make sure that Claire has time to talk about some of the scholarships that are open right now that we will encourage you to apply for.
Yeah, so I would just encourage you to check us out, scholarshipamerica.org. We have the Browse scholarship listings. I've provided the link there. So I think this PowerPoint will be shared with everyone, so you have that link, but it's super easy to find if not. And then Tara, if you could go to the next slide, I just pulled some scholarships that may be relevant. And what I did is just look at the Browse scholarship page and check to see what scholarships were open now. So I won't go through them, but just know that there's a wide variety of scholarships on Scholarship America. We have the vocational scholarship. We have one that's the Richard and Louise Barco scholarship is just for Minnesota students. And there's more scholarships kind of opening at different times. So we're kind of approaching the busy season of scholarships opening. So if you don't see a scholarship that you are eligible for that's open now, that's not to say that next week a different scholarship will be open. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Awesome. And I just want to answer this question super quickly. I know we're running out of time. Thank you, Claire. Why is it bad to get too much financial aid? That's a really good question, Angie. So financial aid, again, is separated into kind of three categories. The first bucket, if you will, is the free money. So what we're talking about today in the form of scholarships. There's also the earned money. And then the borrowed money, so in loans. So when we talk about financial aid, it's a combination of all of those things. And so what we want for students is to use the free money, the scholarships and grants first, before having to use any of that borrowed money, which is student loans or loan money. So if you have a more detailed question about that, I'm happy to take that offline, but that's a really good question. The rest of the slides, honestly, were just some other scholarships we would have shared with you, but we can include those in an email after. I just want to make sure that we get our contact information out for everyone if you want to contact either of us or have additional questions after. Are there any questions right now from anything that we talked about? I know we gave you a lot of information, but I think Claire and I could agree that, you know, scholarships are a great way to pay for college, and it will take a little bit of effort on your side. But the goal is to start now. If you are a senior, it's not too late. You know, and tell, you know, if you have a younger sibling, maybe you want to tell them if they're younger that they could start applying now too, to help them with their education as well. But don't give up. Just don't give up applying if you don't win. Again, not everyone is going to win, and not everyone is going to be eligible for the same scholarship.
So I'm going to give the students a chance to take down your contact information. Some might have questions, but I have a question in the meantime, because paid scholars are not just four-year students. Some of them are master's or doctorate level. How would you say applying for scholarships is different for like your four-year degree compared to trying to apply for scholarships in your master's or doctorate level?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Claire. You go ahead.
Well, yeah, I would say that the process is very similar. We wouldn't ask for high school transcript information. It's probably there's fewer scholarships that I'm aware of. I know Scholarship America does manage scholarships specifically for graduate students and above. But I would say that the application, we would still require short answer responses. We would still ask for information about your undergraduate experience, just not your high school experience. Tara, if you had anything to add.
I was just going to say, I get this question often, and I do my best to find the scholarships for graduate students. I'll just be honest, in my personal experience, there aren't as many opportunities. That doesn't mean they're not out there. I just am not able to find them as easily. To be honest, sometimes what I do, I'll use some of the scholarship platform sites like Scholarship America, some of the ones that we listed to look, but honestly, a Google search, will get you pretty far in just Googling graduate scholarships. But, you know, some of the scholarships are for, you know, they could be open to a high school student. They could be also open to a undergraduate and graduate student. So sometimes the pool is even bigger of who can actually be eligible. But yes, there are specific scholarships solely for graduate students. I'm just not personally finding them as often or as frequently as for high school and then undergrads.
We had someone ask if we can share the links at the end. I'm assuming that's the links to the scholarship database sites.
Yes. If you want, we can just put an email together and send to you so that everybody has everything. And I'm happy to include like my contact information, Claire, if you want to do that as well. And then you can just have everything and students can have an email.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome.
So I will send in a follow-up email.
Any other questions from anybody else? Anybody else want to share, you know, an experience maybe that they had with applying for a scholarship?
I'm sorry, I do have to hop off to run to another meeting,
Nope.
but thank you
good.
for your
Thanks,
time,
Claire.
and it was nice chatting with everyone.
I'll get the email sent out, Claire, and I'll copy you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You. Bye.
I think some students also have to go to class as well.
Sounds
So,
good. Well, thank you
yeah,
everyone for joining us. Sorry, and you're welcome to contact myself or Claire at any time if you have follow-up questions. That's what we're here for. So
yes, thank you so much, you guys, for
Yes.
presenting. Claire's already gone, but thank you so much, Tara, for presenting. This has been informational for me as well. And to all our
good.
scholars, thank you for attending. And our webinar survey at the end, of course, will pop up as usual. If not, it will be in a follow-up email to all of you guys. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.